Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
At least 50 people have lost their lives in Uttarakhand's flash floods that struck Chamoli district last Sunday. More than 150 people are still missing. 2 hydropower projects have been severely damaged, and teams of NDRF, ITBP, Army, and even Navy have been carrying out rescue operations tirelessly through the week. Today we have with us the Chief of NDRF, Mr. S.N. Pradhan, who's going to talk to us about the challenges that the teams are facing on the ground while these rescue operations are on. He'll also take us through the situation in the area currently. Welcome to the Prince, sir. Sir, if you could just tell us a little about the current situation in Uttarakhand, Chamoli district, and also, like you mentioned earlier, that this situation is very different from what the forces have seen in the past. So how is it different, and what is the current situation on the ground?
Okay, Ananya, how it's situated right now is that in terms of body count, 53 bodies have been now accounted for. That leaves 151 still missing as per the State Emergency Operations Center of Uttarakhand. So we are going by that figure, and so the efforts, as you said, are still on. And as we speak, NDRF teams are not only in the tunnel trying to rescue or find out as many dead bodies as possible, but also spread out in the general area of the valley, river valley, and near the Rainy village and elsewhere, looking for possible dead bodies. Because it's already the 7th or the 8th day now, so the possibility of survival is certainly bleak, but we are certainly required to account for the missing, and dead bodies, when they are found and identified, are one way of doing that. As far as the situation is concerned, the uniqueness of the challenge is concerned, it is unique because probably it is a natural but freak accident. I call it natural but freak because in the sequence of events that has been now rebuilt, reconstructed, the big chunk of a mountain fell from the top onto a glacier on the slope in the Nanda Devi ecosystem, and the glacier then cracked, and the mountain debris and the glacier combined to come into the Rishi Ganga river system. And then it started a deluge, which probably because it was an isolated event, it was stretched up to 5 kilometers of deluge, and then the water evened out. So in that 5 kilometers, the damage was spectacular. To wipe out an entire hydel power project under construction, 2 of them actually, would have taken a lot of kinetic energy of the rocks and the boulders and the glacier pieces and the water. That combination was lethal, and that wiped out everything in its way, literally. So that's why I call it a unique and a freak accident of nature, and it is one of its kind that we are facing. But then it has done a lot of damage to human lives and property in terms of the hydel project, certainly, which would have been a boon probably for the area. But now it probably has to be rebuilt or replanned. But the point is, there has been a lot of loss of lives, and we are here to ensure that at least all those who are missing are accounted for.
So how many teams of NDRF are currently engaged in this rescue operation? Are you trying to even push more resources into this operation? Since we have been talking about how all the agencies in fact have pushed in as many resources as possible to make sure that these operations are carried out swiftly.
Yeah, you are right that multiple agencies are operating. And in fact, in a disaster situation like this, multiple agencies have to gel together and operate together in a lot of strong collaboration. That strong collaboration has been in evidence. I must compliment the state authorities, all the state authorities, including the state police, the SDRF of the state, and other civilian agencies of the state have really put their heart and soul into it. I've been in touch with the DGP, the Chief Secretary's office, the Home Secretary's office, Uttarakhand. The Chief Secretary office was, of course, twice online for the National Crisis Management Committee meeting headed by the Cabinet Secretary and the Home Secretary. So, all in all, there has been a lot of strong coordination, including the Army, like the central agencies, I can count the army, which has done a stellar job. The navy, diverse weather, of course, they're probably not required, but they are still around. The paramilitary in the shape of ITBP. ITBP did a spectacular job and really took the first brunt of the whole challenge. The commandant there at Joshimath and his entire team really put themselves in the line of duty and with a lot of alacrity and a lot of commitment. So all in all, it's a very, very well coordinated effort, and it's a template for disaster response for the future, because in disasters you don't stand on ceremony. You don't say this is the limit of my duty and this is something I cannot do. ITBP can always say that it is not required to handle disasters, but yes, it is not only primed, it is now trained and it is handling disasters also. So it is not a singular effect of the NDRF only. The NDRF, the SDRF, Army, everybody is planning it together. That itself was a challenge to coordinate everything and bring ourselves onto the same page. But I'm very glad and happy that through a process of trial and error, everybody knows his job now and everybody is doing his job now. But to answer your question about more resources, I think the optimal resources have already been committed, and as of now, more resources are not required. What is required now is to find out and account for all the missing and dead, and also, if possible, to restore normalcy in that area. As you know, probably that a new makeshift bridge has been constructed between the two banks of the river, so that people can travel between the two banks and relief material can go. So all this has really started bringing a little normalcy back. Of course, the loss of lives cannot be compensated completely, but then some sense of normalcy is returning, and while that happens, parallelly we will continue our operations till the local administration requires us to stay there.
Talking about the challenges, sir, as you yourself mentioned that this is something that was not seen before. So, what are the kind of challenges that the force, who's working on the ground with all its resources, their teams, face in a tragedy like this, in a disaster like this?
The first challenge is, of course, to react as quickly as possible. Because in disaster parlance, response time is of critical importance. How quickly you are on the rebound and how quickly you reacted. Luckily, the state had the SDRF already stationed at Joshimath, pre-stationed, because that is one of its stations. And as I said earlier, that the battalion of ITBP is already located there. There is a battalion headquarters there. So, in fact, the commandant of that battalion was one of the first to be contacted by us, by our commandant from Ghaziabad, so that they could now establish a connect and find out exactly what is happening on the ground. So that was the first challenge, the response. The second challenge was the rapidly developing situation, because there was no idea exactly what had happened and how it had happened. So we had to reconstruct the whole thing very quickly and realize that this is a unique kind of a natural accident that has happened. It took some time, but we got a sense of it very early. The third thing that was required was that people had to be told what had happened. There had to be a national level communication, which is called strategic communication in disaster, so that every media house knows what exactly has happened. So that had to be done from Delhi, and I had to do that role because the correct version of the event should have been in the media houses, and that could be handled very well. The ITBP, the National Crisis Management Committee, headed by the Cabinet Secretary, was held within a few hours of the disaster, and then the right version went out into the public domain so that people knew what had happened. And the fourth challenge was to assuage the relatives and friends and the family members of those missing. It was important that they should know what was happening. So that, of course, initially was a challenge because emotions run high. But then we were able to tell them that we were there for them and we'll do our best to recover those people who can be recovered. And you saw in the first few hours the ITBP recovered 12 people, saved 12 people in a very critical situation. So all in all, I think it has come to a situation where the the public at large is satisfied with the work of the agencies. The other challenge I would like to talk about specifically is the new development which came at the back of the first disaster. The formation of a so-called lake, which formed up because of the piling of debris in the upper reaches of the Rishi Ganga. That created a sort of a panic. It had to be handled well again. Again, strategic communication had to be done, and the right version should have come out. And that was also done because the Home Secretary again held a crisis management committee meeting. The agencies, relevant agencies like DRDO, the NTRO, and others were pressed into service. And then the state was assigned the task, which took that responsibility upon itself, to send a team to physically verify the situation. DRDO teams overflew that area, drones were overflown in that area, and a complete picture was brought out to nip the panic in the bud. That the lake was not dangerous, that there was a natural outflow happening, and that it is not in a critical situation that another disaster is going to follow the original disaster. So, all in all, these challenges were there, but I think they were met squarely and efficiently.
So, talking about these drones and this technology that was used in this entire operation has not been seen before. Was it the first time that NDRF and other agencies used this sort of technology? If you could just give us a peek into what kind of technology was used that was never used before earlier, and which all agencies were brought on board for this? What was the coordination efforts that were done by you and other agencies to tackle the problem swiftly?
I always say that when an effort goes on against a disaster and meeting a disaster, it is the role of the team India. India as one team. So it is not only that the only public sector agencies or only central government or only state government or only district administration or the local people only. It's a combination of all this, including the private sector. In this case, it is not as if technology was used for the first time, but I would say technology was used in a very organized way, in a very systematic way. Just to share, there were startups which were brought in by the Invest India program and Startup India program. So it is very interesting that Startup India and Invest India program, which is under the Ministry of DIPP, Director of Investment Promotion and Industrial Promotion, and that ministry under which Startup India and the DRDO are collaborating, they became a stakeholder in this, and they offered their services pro bono to assist NDRF in drone technology, in fixed wing UAV technology, in probe technologies inside the tunnel, with which were body cameras or cameras which could be remotely handled. In fact, the first view of the inside of the tunnel into the wall, where it was not possible to go any further. The first views from inside the tunnel were taken by a drone.
Right.
So, I think to answer your question in brief, this is for the first time that multiple technologies and multiple technological agencies came together. Just to count the technological agencies: DRDO, Invest India, NTRO, ISRO, NRSA, you name the agencies, everybody was there. And CSIR.
Yeah.
And CSIR, the multiple, verticals of CSIR, not only the CSIR head office, but multiple verticals of CSIR, soil scientists, SASE, which handles avalanches. Everybody came together. And it was like the user agencies, the clients, as well as the provider agencies, service provider agencies, all came together in the interest of the nation. And technology was leveraged in the interest of the nation. This gives a very good template for the future, because more and more such agencies are coming forward. While we were handling or collaborating with such agencies, more and more agencies actually contacted us. Many mails came to me saying that, can we also help? Can we also help? I think these are very good signs. These are very good signs for a prepared nation which is wanting to be disaster ready, because India is vulnerable to multiple disasters, including this kind of a disaster. It has hills, it has high mountains, it has the coast, thousands of kilometers of coastline, it has drought-prone areas, it has deserts. So it is vulnerable to multiple varieties of disasters. So multiple hazard syndrome is what characterizes India. So in such a scenario, when more and more such agencies are able to help and more technologies are leveraged, I think it will be an efficiency multiplier and a force multiplier for disaster agencies.
So if you could just give our viewers a peek into what happened on day one and how these agencies, like we had spoken earlier and you had told us, on which we've also done a story as to how you could on the first day see a picture in front of you because of the help of drones, it was there on your screen, and how the operation could be managed better because you had those visuals. If you could just give our viewers a little peek into what happened on day one.
Okay, let's start with the day one and how we first found out about what exactly had happened. It was by word of mouth and by the use of telephone technology, mobile technology, and satellite phones. We could get a sense. Meanwhile, the overhead drones of NTRO and ISRO were also overflown there, so that we could get a sense, because we must remember that it happened in the early part, first part of the day. 10:30 a.m. is the time around which this whole event happened. So we got some daytime to cover that area. So already multiple agencies were pressed into service, and we must also remember that lot of satellites are overflying in that area, and we could get some sense of what had happened. So initially that was the combination of satellite technology and mobile technology and satellite phone technology that gave us a sense, including human intelligence, because people were on ground. ITBP could go on ground, SDRF was on ground, and they had satellite phones, etc. Following that, the very next day onwards, we pressed into service new technologies like drone technology, fixed wing drones and rotary drones and helicopter drones, and also scientists of DRDO, CSIR, etc., went into the action mode. A very interesting technology that was used by CSIR with helicopters, with underhanging radar technology, which ground penetration radar technology, which could give a sense of what exactly had happened in the tunnel. And because of that, we could get a sense that the entire tunnel was packed with mud and slush. That gave a color-coded, picture of what exactly had happened. So we could see that in the visual. And then, of course, when the NDRF teams reached there in the night it was not possible, but in the morning onwards, I could talk to my force commandant visually, because we set up a QDA, quick deployment antenna, which is from hitched to a VSAT technology. So I could see a visual of the entire dam and what had happened. I could see a visual of the entire valley, and I could see a visual of the tunnel where the work was going on, and we could map it. So in my control room, I was sitting, I could talk to my force commander, I could tell them what exactly to do, and I could ask them what is the support that they require. So overall, I think we were all connected, and this matters a lot. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, this was not the case, but today, because of technology and the technology that we are using proactively, we were all connected. So we had a grip on the situation. We knew what was happening, and we could then apportion tasks to each of the agencies and tell them what to do, so that it is a combined effort to save as many lives and property as possible.
So whenever a disaster like this happens, it's also a kind of reality check as to where we stand when it comes to, say, doing these rescue operations or managing the situation. This also, I'm sure, must have taught a lot of lessons. So if you could just elaborate a little on where do we stand logistically, what else do we need, what else is required, say, in future if something like this happens, so that it can be dealt in a better way.
One of the ways I can start to answer your question is to give the good news first. The good news is that Uttarakhand will now have a NDRF battalion dedicated to Uttarakhand state.
Okay.
Because the process had started before this. It is not connected to this event, but then it is coincidental also, because even as the event happened, the earlier part of that week, we had actually identified the land, and Uttarakhand government and NDRF had mutually identified the land to station the a new NDRF battalion at Haldwani.
Right.
So the land has been now almost finalized. Then multiple teams, sub-teams will also be placed in and around all the accessible areas or all the strategically located areas, so that there is a outreach and response time is minimized for such incidents. So that is one good thing. Mountain-bound state like Uttarakhand or Himachal. Himachal also is getting another battalion dedicated to Himachal. Those mountain-bound states like Uttarakhand and Himachal require a dedicated battalion. I think it will again add to their strength in handling disasters like this. But there is always room for improvement. It is not as if that we are ready for everything and anything. It is in the nature of disasters that you cannot be ready for everything. This was I told you in the answer to the first question is this is a unique kind of a disaster because it doesn't happen that a mountain falls on a glacier and the glacier then bursts. Then followed by that there is a lake build up also, which of course did not turn into a crisis. But these are unique things. But in mountain, I think you should expect unique things. Unique formations will happen because you cannot have a control over the phenomenon in the mountain, and especially with climate change happening. I think it is more and more required that if you are wanting to face the challenges efficiently, I think not only the technology has to be improved. Some of the technologies that were used probably have now to become resident with NDRF. Now we are hiring these technologies or using them pro bono. Probably now we must have this. Similarly, all these satellite technologies, including GIS, GPS, space technologies, must all combine together. And it is high time that every agency, like the ITBP, was used.
Right.
So, if ITBP also has a disaster response component in all of its battalions, especially which are located in the mountain areas.
Okay.
Similarly, CRPF can have disaster management components. So, because NDRF cannot be the answer to every crisis. These are quantitative limitations itself. It cannot be everywhere at the same time. So, NDRF can be a nodal point, but then other CAPFs, other parts of the government like the army and the states can build up SDRFs. I think there is a lesson in this that the SDRF was very efficiently used in this crisis. But it is because the state had an SDRF. Many states don't have an SDRF. So I think there is a lesson here that every state must build its SDRF and make it an efficient SDRF. So all in all, there are lessons for technology, there are lessons for coordination, there are lessons for manpower management and better skilled manpower, and there is a very big room for use of space technology, I think, specifically among technologies as an answer to these challenges. But these challenges will not come down with more and more climate change, temperatures changing. I think these challenges will only multiply and increase.
So, also, whenever there's a disaster like this, there are talks that it could have been averted, probably dealt with better. In fact, I was reading a piece in which it said that there should be technologically a mechanism to alert the people, say, who were workers here who were working on the sites, to alert them about such kind of a disaster so that they could be flown out of that place much before this happened. Do you think, since you've worked with so many agencies, there could be a technology that can be developed in the near future?
See, Ananya, there is room for improvement always, and you should learn lessons from every incident. But having said that, there were the difference between life and death was a few seconds or few minutes. People in the village had to call up and say that the river was moving that side, and that was a few minutes later the river was upon the project workers and who were inside the tunnel. So probably there was no way they could have come out in time. So these limitations are natural. These limitations are typical to the incident. But then, of course, as an afterthought, you can think in terms of could there have been hooters? Could there have been more sirens? Could there have been there's alarm system? All these things are lessons that one would learn from such events. But the biggest lesson, I think, is that everybody must have disaster response readiness. Whether you are an NDRF, whether you are an SDRF, or a part of a general public, you are a villager, or you are a worker in a project. You must be primed to disaster response. You should be a responder to disaster. For that, mock drills are required. Every agency, whether private or public, must take up a lot of mock drills. I do not know whether mock drills had been done in this project earlier, but such mock drills should happen. Even now, they should happen more and more. And state governments must take a lead in ensuring such mock drills in such projects. NDRF on its part would be very happy to facilitate such mock drills and actually ensure that the mock drills are conducted well, and we would like to help them in the mock drills. As we speak, mock drills are happening across the country. The Honorable Home Minister has tasked NDRF to have at least one mega mock drill in each district, each of the 700 odd districts over the next 2.5 years. Right. So these are requirements. This is not a luxury, right, because disaster can happen anywhere, it can happen to anyone, and it can happen anytime. Right. So we should not trifle with disaster, we should not take it lightly, we should be disaster ready. And to be disaster ready, every citizen must be disaster ready mentally and otherwise with some basic skills. I think that is a lesson from any disaster, and certainly from this disaster.
That's a very relevant point, sir. If just to give our viewers a little glimpse of what is happening on the ground right now, how many teams of NDRF have actually been pressed into action? How many personnel are there? Moreover, this entire rescue operation, does it go on from morning to evening? What are the hours, number of hours that are being put in?
Well, I'll give a short answer to the number of hours. The number of hours are 24/7 actually. Right. We are not resting. We are doing it in turns, maybe by rotation, by some kind of a shift policy, but it is non-stop. So it is 24/7, and it has been for the last 7 days now. We have committed about 200 personnel there, 5 teams to be exact, 5 of NDRF teams, which is about 40 to 45. Along with a lot of technology, where every team has about 200 to 250 or to 300 equipment. Of course, all the equipment are not required in this case, but that is the norm. Apart from NDRF, there is ITBP, which is, as I said, the entire battalion, and then the SDRF, which is one team. I think the teams have multiplied. They have added more teams, and about 400 SDRF is working. And apart from that, of course, the Army, the engineering wing of the Army is also working. So all in all, about 700 to 800 personnel or maybe more are working night and day. Of course, in the last few days, the NDRF and the SDRF have combined for the search of bodies, while others have been kept on standby. So this could take several more days, because as you said yourself, that 150 odd are still missing. So for that to be accounted for is our primary task now. Probably the bodies, for want of a better expression, the bodies have to be found. And that could take a lot of time, because we must remember that bodies are probably trapped under several meters of slush. And it is getting more and more difficult with each passing day. So anyway, as I said, we will never say no. We will never back down from the commitment that we have made, that we must find as many people as possible, so that there is a closure to the families who have lost their people. And that is a national duty we conduct. And as far as NDRF is concerned, we handled even dead bodies with great respect, and we realized that in any civilization, and certainly in the Indian civilization, the respect for the dead is of primal importance. So we do it with a lot of sensitivity, and will continue to do this. So I cannot put a number of days to the end of this operation, but I think at least several more days will be required before we close this operation.
So last question, once all this is over and your teams are back, is there any special kind of training that you plan for your personnel, probably, from what they already have, something more after this disaster?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Actually, we are in the process of establishing 4 battalions, new battalions, over the 12 battalions which are already existent. Out of those new 4 battalions, 3 battalions are going to be stationed in the hilly states. One, as I said, in Uttarakhand, one in Himachal, and one in J&K. In all these 3 states, apart from the 4th one, which is going to be in NCR of Delhi, all these 3 states are hilly states and will have a lot of issues about avalanches, about incidents like this. about people trapped in snow, about high altitude rescue, etc., will always be the case. I must confess that NDRF so far has not focused on high altitude rescue so much and snow avalanches so much, or people trapped in snow so much. So it is now very important for us to upgrade our skills in that direction. So when the teams come back, for example, our teams were supposed to also trek to the lake, but the snow boots were not in place because we are still in the process of procurement of the winter clothing for the battalions which are going to be newly placed in the hilly states. So that process has just started. So obviously these are gaps which have been intensified, or the importance of that has been made very clear in the course of this operation, that we have to fast track all these skills and also the requirements to be fulfilled. So these are skills in the hilly states which are going to be unique to these places, like helicopter rescue, winching rescue, even high speed floodwater rescue, because the gradients in these rivers are going to be very high. So all these, including tunnel rescue, for example, how to make tunnel rescue. And it is not only for NDRF technology. What about technology which clears out mud and slush faster? That is a problem that we have given to CSIR and DRDO, that we must think about it. What about getting a survey done quickly within the first few hours after a natural phenomenon like this has happened, and get a picture from the satellites? All this has to be now looked at with a fresh eye, fresh perspective, because these are challenges which are not going to slow down or come down in numbers. They are going to multiply. And with a fragile ecosystem in the light of climate change across the world, especially the mountain ecosystems are going to be more and more fragile. So we have to really take care of this and be prepared.
Thank you so much. So this was Chief of NDRF, Mr. S.N. Pradhan, talking to us about the challenges that the teams are facing in Uttarakhand while the rescue operations are on. What are the lessons learned during this disaster that happened? Thank you for watching The Print. Please do keep a track on our ground reports from Uttarakhand, where our correspondent Angana Chakrabarti along with Suraj Bisht are there reporting from Chamoli. Thank you.